हरिः ओम्। नमस्सर्वेभ्यः। अष्टाध्यायी परिचयः इत्यस्य वर्गस्य अद्य चतुर्थः पाठः। अद्य वयं वर्णानां कालकृतान् विभागान् पश्यामः। आदौ वन्दनं। शुक्लाम्बरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। येनाक्षरसमाम्नायम् अधिगम्य महेश्वरात् कृत्स्नं व्याकरणं प्रोक्तं तस्मै पाणिनये नमः। वाक्यकारं वररुचिं भाष्यकारं पतञ्जलिं पाणिनिं सूत्रकारं च प्रणतोऽस्मि मुनित्रयम्। अस्माकं वर्गस्य प्रयोजनद्वयम् आदौ स्मारयामि। अष्टाध्याय्याः आहत्य चतुश्शतं सूत्राणां व्याख्यासहितम् उदाहरणसहितं च अध्ययनं, तथा च अष्टाध्याय्याः प्रथमाध्यायस्य प्रथमपादस्य कण्ठस्थीकरणम्। प्रारम्भे किञ्चित् पुनरावर्तनं कुर्मः। पूर्वस्मिन् वर्गे आदौ अस्माभिः शिक्षा, व्याकरणं तथा निरुक्तम् एते विषयाः संक्षेपेण दृष्टाः। तत्र शिक्षायां के विचाराः उपस्थापिताः सन्ति इति चेत् वर्णाः, वर्णोत्पत्तिः, वर्णानां विभागाः, वर्णानाम् उच्चारणस्थानानि, वर्णेषु जायमानं परिवर्तनम् इत्येते सर्वे विषयाः प्रामुख्येन शिक्षाशास्त्रे चर्चिताः वर्तन्ते। तदनन्तरं व्याकरणशास्त्रे किमस्ति इति चेत् प्रामुख्येन प्रकृतिप्रत्ययविभागस्य तथा च प्रकृतिप्रत्ययमेलनस्य नियमाः व्याकरणे सन्ति। अस्यैव सन्दर्भेण यौगिकशब्दानां तथा च योगरूढशब्दानां व्युत्पत्तेः चिन्तनम् अपि व्याकरणशास्त्रे कृतं दृश्यते। तदनन्तरं निरुक्ते मुख्यरूपेण वैदिकशब्दानां व्युत्पत्तिः पाठिता लभ्यते। निःशेषरूपेण उक्तम् इति निरुक्तम् इति शब्दस्य आशयः। इत्युक्ते व्याकरणे अपि यद् न उक्तं तद् यत्र उक्तं तद् निरुक्तम् इति अत्र आशयः वर्तते। एतेषु सर्वेषु शिक्षाशास्त्रे उक्ताः वर्णसम्बन्धिनः विषयाः अस्माकं व्याकरणस्य अध्ययनार्थम् आवश्यकाः। अतः व्याकरणस्य अपि अध्ययनात् पूर्वं शिक्षाशास्त्रस्य विशेषरूपेण वर्णमालायाः अध्ययनम् आवश्यकं वर्तते। तद् अस्माभिः पूर्वस्मिन् वर्गे आरब्धम्। तत्र आदौ वर्णः इति शब्दस्य व्युत्पत्तिः अस्माभिः अधीता। ध्वनिं वर्णयति सः वर्णः, नो चेत् ध्वनिः भिन्नेषु विभागेषु भिद्यते येन सः वर्णः इति तस्य व्याख्याद्वयं सम्भवति। अस्य वर्णस्य निर्देशः कथं करणीयः इति चेत् तत्र द्वौ नियमौ अस्माभिः अधीतौ। वर्णात् कारः तथा च राद् इफः। कस्यापि वर्णस्य निर्देशः कार इति प्रत्ययेन सम्भवति, यथा अकारः, ककारः इत्यादिकम्। द्वितीयं सूत्रं राद् इफः, नो चेत् रादिफः। र इति वर्णस्य निर्देशार्थम् इफ इति कश्चन विशेषः प्रत्ययः दत्तः अस्ति। अतः र वर्णस्य निर्देशः रेफ इति प्रकारेण अपि सम्भवति। कार प्रत्ययस्य प्रयोगं कुर्मश्चेत् रकार इति अपि अवश्यं वक्तुं शक्यते। तदनन्तरम् अस्माभिः संक्षेपेण मातृकापाठः दृष्टः। शब्दानां मूलरूपेण इत्युक्ते मातृरूपेण स्थितानां वर्णानां सङ्कलनं मातृकापाठः नाम्ना ज्ञायते। एतादृशमेव सङ्कलनं पाणिनीयशिक्षायाम् अपि कृतम् अस्ति, परन्तु तत्र वर्णानां संख्या भिन्नरूपेण दत्ता वर्तते। 63 नो चेत् 64 वर्णाः शम्भुमते प्रोक्ताः इति तत्र निर्देशः अस्माभिः अधीतः। एतत् सर्वं दृष्ट्वा तदनन्तरं वयं मुख्यान् वर्णविभागान् अपि अपश्याम। स्वराः, व्यञ्जनानि तथा च अयोगवाहाः इति तेषां नामानि। एतेषां सर्वेषां व्याख्याः अपि अस्माभिः दृष्टाः। झटिति स्मारयामि। स्वयं राजन्ति ते स्वराः, व्यज्यते स्वरैः इति व्यञ्जनानि, व्यज्यन्ते स्वरैः इति व्यञ्जनानि। तथा च माहेश्वरसूत्रेषु योगं न वहन्ति इत्युक्ते भागं न गृह्णन्ति ते अयोगवाहाः। एतेषु व्यञ्जनानाम् अग्रे उपविभागाः कृताः वर्तन्ते। वर्गीयव्यञ्जनानि एतानि 25 सन्ति। पञ्चसु वर्गेषु विभाजितानि सन्ति, क वर्गः, ट वर्गः इत्यादिकम्। तदनन्तरं चत्वारः अन्तःस्थाः स्वराः तथा च व्यञ्जनानि एतेषाम् अन्तः इत्युक्ते मध्ये तिष्ठन्ति इत्युक्ते द्वयोः अपि गुणैः युक्ताः सन्ति ते अन्तःस्थाः इति आशयः। तदनन्तरम् ऊष्माणः श ष स ह एते सर्वे एतेषाम् उच्चारणसमये अधिकः वायुः बहिः प्रक्षिप्यते, अतः एतेषाम् ऊष्माणः इति नाम दत्तमस्ति। ऊष्मन् इति प्रातिपदिकं, प्रथमा एकवचनम् ऊष्मा, प्रथमा बहुवचनम् ऊष्माणः। एतत् सर्वं व्यञ्जनानाम् इत्युक्ते मुख्यव्यञ्जनानां विषये। तदनन्तरम् अयोगवाहाः एते चत्वारः सन्ति। प्रथमः अनुस्वारः, नासिकामार्गेण बहिः आगतः मकारसदृशः ध्वनिः अनुस्वारः इति नाम्ना ज्ञायते। तदनन्तरं विसर्गः, उरः प्रदेशात् बहिः आगतः हकारसदृशः ध्वनिः विसर्गः अस्ति। तदनन्तरं जिह्वामूलीयः, विसर्गात् अनन्तरं क नो चेत् ख वर्णः विद्यते चेत् विसर्गस्य स्थाने कस्यचन भिन्नस्य ख इति सदृशवर्णस्य उच्चारणं भवति। यथा रामः करोति, रामः खादति, अयं जिह्वामूलीयः वर्णः। अन्ते उपध्मानीयः, विसर्गादनन्तरं पकारः फकारः वा विद्यते चेत् विसर्गस्य स्थाने कस्यचन भिन्नस्य प सदृशवर्णस्य उच्चारणं भवति। यथा रामः पठति, द्रुमः फलति, अयम् उपध्मानीयः वर्णः। एतत् सर्वम् अस्माभिः दृष्ट्वा तदनन्तरम् अक्षरं तथा संयोगः इत्येतयोः विषये अपि अधीतम्। अन्यवर्णैः सह नो चेत् अन्यवर्णैः विना विद्यमानः स्वरः अक्षरं नाम्ना ज्ञायते। तथा च स्वरः नास्ति परन्तु द्वौ उत अधिकानि व्यञ्जनानि सन्ति चेत् सः संयोगः नाम्ना ज्ञायते। एतत् सर्वं दृष्ट्वा अन्ते अस्माभिः वर्णोत्पत्तेः विषये पाणिनीयशिक्षायां किमुक्तमस्ति तदपि दृष्टम्। आत्मा बुद्ध्या समेत्यार्थान् मनो युङ्क्ते विवक्षया, मनः कायाग्निमाहन्ति सः प्रेरयति मारुतं, मारुतस्तूरसी चरन् मन्दं जनयति स्वरम्। अत्र वर्णोत्पत्तेः पञ्चसोपानानि निर्दिष्टानि वर्तन्ते। प्रारंभे ध्वनेः कर्ता इत्युक्ते आत्मा बुद्ध्याः साहाय्येन अर्थान् एकत्रीकरोति, बुद्ध्या समेत्य। तदनन्तरं तान् अर्थान् शब्दरूपेण प्रकटीकर्तुं सः मनोवृत्तिं नियुनक्ति। तदनन्तरं तत् नियुक्तं मनः जठराग्निम् उद्दीपयति। सः जठराग्निः अग्रे उरसि विद्यमानं प्राणवायुं प्रेरयति। अन्ते अयं वायुः उरः प्रदेशात् अग्रे इत्युक्ते ऊर्ध्वदिशि विचरन् तन्त्रीप्रदेशम् आगत्य ततः अपि अग्रे गत्वा कण्ठादिषु अवयवेषु आघातं कृत्वा श्रूयमाणस्य ध्वनेः निर्माणं करोति। अस्मिन् सन्दर्भे अस्माभिः इदं चित्रम् अपि दृष्टं। तत्र प्रारम्भे स्वरयन्त्रं नो चेत् उरः इत्यस्मात् प्रदेशात् वायुः उपरि आगच्छति। फर्स्ट place where the vayu strikes is this vocal cords, tantrau. At this point no sound is generated but a minor transformation happens in that particular vayu. We are going to learn about it in details in upcoming classes. Then that vayu comes up and it strikes, actually hits one of those places which are shown in the bold, either Kantha, Jivha, Dantaha, Oshtau, Murdha, Talu, Nasika. Sometimes it strikes more than one places, and depending on the force, depending on the angle, depending on the distance between the place of striking and the Jivha. So based on all these parameters, different letters are generated. We are going to study all that theory in upcoming classes. So all this was basically discussed in the previous class. तदनन्तरम् अस्माभिः वर्गस्य अन्ते पाणिनीयशिक्षायाम् उक्ताः वर्णविभागाः अपि दृष्टाः। स्वरतः कालतः स्थानात् प्रयत्नात् अनुप्रदानतः इति वर्णविदः प्राहुः निपुणं तन्निबोधत. The letters are classified into 5 styles or by 5 styles, by 5 methods. Kalam anusrutya, swaram anusrutya, sthanam anusrutya, prayatnam anusrutya, and anupradanam anusrutya. I mentioned this yesterday, but let me repeat. These are not the choices, in the sense a letter is not going to be either classified based on swara or sthana or prayatna. Each letter will be classified based on each of these. So these are methods of classification. So for example, if you take akara, varna, then kalam anusrutya varna vibhaga, it belongs to this rasva category. Swaram anusrutya varna vibhaga, it belongs to this udatta category. Sthanam anusrutya varna vibhaga, it belongs to this kanthya category. Prayatnam anusrutya varna vibhaga, it belongs to this samvrita category. And anupradanam anusrutya varna vibhaga, it belongs to this nadinaha and alpa pranaha category. So the letters belong to each of these one category in each of this group. That's what we are going to discuss going ahead from tomorrow's class. So if there are any questions based on the yesterday's material or the stuff discussed before that, you can ask right now. But otherwise, we have a lot of stuff to cover. So I'll now jump on the first style of classification, and that is Kalam Anusrutya Varna Vibhagaha. In today's class, that's all we are going to learn, Kalam Anusrutya Varna Vibhagaha. There are small things, but lots of things that we need to discuss today. So let's start. At any point in time, if there are questions, raise your hand, and then at an appropriate interval, I'll take your questions. So let us start. What is Kalam Anusrutya to start with? The division of letters that is done based on the kala, the amount of time it takes to pronounce a letter. So how much time the organs or the person takes to pronounce that letters. For some letters, it's a less time. For some letters, it's more time. That mathematics has been done, and the groups based on this kala are created. Now, before we go ahead, if you think a little bit, the amount of time that it takes to pronounce a letter actually depends, or the first thing that it will depend on is the speed of talking. So if you speak fast, the same letter can be pronounced in less time. If you speak slow, the same letter can take more time for pronunciation. You get the point, right? And therefore, before we actually do this Kalam Anusrutya Varna Vibhaga, we need to formalize this concept of speed of talking. Because unless a speed is fixed, this division based on Kalam is not going to work. Therefore, before we talk about any of these Varna Vibhagas, the most important point is to understand how the speed of speaking has been formalized. And this speed of speaking in the Shiksha Shastra is called Vrittihi. I am specifically mentioning Shiksha Shastra because in the Vyakarana Shastra, this word is not really used. And in Vyakarana Shastra, the word Vritti has an altogether different meaning, quite advanced, which we will learn probably 50-60 classes later. But for now, we are still in the Shiksha Shastra. So from the Shiksha Shastra point of view, there is this particular word called Vrittihi. And how is it defined? वर्णोच्चारणस्य गतिः, the speed of talking, is called vritti. And there is a further elaboration on this particular word vritti. How is this speed classified? So in the Rigveda Pratishakya, Ruk Pratishakya, you see this line, तिस्रः वृत्तिः उपदिशन्ति वाचः विलम्बितां मध्यमां द्रुतां च. कहा अर्थः? आचार्याः, the scholars, the teachers say that the vritti can be classified into three main buckets. Tisraha vrittihi, three types of vrittis. This is Dvitiya Bahuvachanam. Three types of vrittis are being told by Acharya. What are these? Vilambita, talking slowly. Madhyama, talking in medium speed. And Druta, talking super fast. So these three vrittis, obviously now you will say that speed is a continuous spectrum, but still for all practical purposes, it has been divided into three groups. Just like the way in a classroom, the marks can be continuous, but we still divide them into say A, B, C grades. So in exactly the same way, the speed has been classified into three groups, Vilambita, Madhyama, and Druta. And how is it defined? Yet another shiksha called Yajnavalkya Shiksha talks about the definitions of these. Abhyasarthe drutam vrittim, prayogarthe tu madhyamam, shishanam upadesharthe kuryad vrittim vilambitam. Very beautiful definition. It says that when you are teaching students, Shishyanam Upadesharthe, you usually speak slowly. You make sure that every letter is stressed properly. So that kind of speed is called Vilambita Vrittihi. Shishyanam Upadesharthe Vilambitam Vrittim Kuryad. So imagine this, for example, you are teaching Vishnu Sahasranama, and then the first shloka, you want to teach it to students. So you will speak slow. You will ensure that every rasva, dirgha, every letter is pronounced clearly. So for example, Vishwam, Vishnur, Vashatkaro. You will speak in this tone, and that speed will be called Vilambita Vritti. It is used for Adhyapana. Now imagine a second scenario where you have a group of 100 people and you all are doing a group chanting of Vishnu Sahasranama. Now obviously you will not speak in the same speed like I mentioned earlier, the slow letter by letter reference and so on. It will be a little faster, but it will still not be super fast because you have to make sure that your speed matches with the speed of everybody else. So that's the Madhyama Vritti, Vishwam, Vishnur, Vashatkaro, and so on. So that is used for the Prayoga, for the Vyavahara, for talking with each other. And finally, let us assume you are doing your own chanting of Vishnu Sahasranama. Maybe you are doing Parayanas, 4, 5, 6, 10 repetitions one after the other. You will speak fast. Probably you will speak in your mind or just with the lips. And the way you will speak would be Vishwam Vishnu Vashatkaro, Bhuta Bhavya, and so on. So that is Druta Vrittihi Abhyasadishu. Abhyasa means repetition. So when you are repeating to yourself, you will use Druta Vritti. For Prayoga, you will use Madhyama Vritti. And for Shishopadesha, you will use Vilambita Vritti. So these are the three buckets of speeds of pronunciation. Varnocharasya gatihi. These have been defined in the Shiksha Shastra. And anytime you are saying that such and such letter takes X unit of time, such and such letter takes, say, 2x units of time, and so on, you have to always understand that these equations are being referenced in context of a particular vritti. अतः प्रारंभे का वृत्तिः इति निर्णयः करणीयः, तदनन्तरम् एव वर्णोच्चारस्य कालस्य विषये अग्रे वक्तुं शक्यते. So with this background, when we come to the discussion of the kala, the time required for pronunciation of a letter, the technical term that is used in grammar, Vyakarana Shastra, as well as in Shiksha, it's called matra. It's a very important term. Remember this. And what is a matra? The definition is very simple. प्रत्येकं वृत्तौ अ इति स्वरस्य उच्चारणार्थं यः कालः आवश्यकः सः मात्रा इति नाम्ना ज्ञायते. The vyutpatti is also very simple. Miyate. Miyate means measured. Miyate vrittau varnoccharanam anaya iti matra. The tool with which the varnocharana timing is measured in a given vritti. So if you just say a iti swarasya uchcharanartham avashyakah kalaha eka matra, that will not make sense. Because if you speak fast, you will require less time to pronounce a. If you speak very slow, you will require a little more time. It's not going to be dramatically different, but a little more time to pronounce a. And therefore, adau vrittehe nishchayam krutva tatah eva matrayaha nirnayaha karaniyaha. So this concept of vritti, even though it is never directly referenced in Vyakarana Shastra, it is at the back of the definition of matra. Vyakarana Shastre matra iti shabdaha bahutra prayujyate. And every time this word is used, you have to fix a vritti at the back of your mind and then scale that word or then define that word appropriately. And then there is a relation given by various pratishakyas between the matra of a dhruta vritti versus matra of a madhyama vritti versus matra of a vilambita vritti. So we don't need to go in that particular mathematics, but just for those who are interested, if for example it takes x seconds for one matra in dhruta, then it takes 1.33 times x seconds for the same letter in madhyama and 1.78x seconds for the same letter in Vilambita. So see how detailed this analysis has been done in our Shastra. You have to fix a vritti first, then only the concept of matra will become sensible. And therefore, it is extremely hard or next to impossible to define the word matra in an absolute sense. Still, there are some kind of definitions given in the Shiksha Shastras and other granthas, and these are to be taken upalakshanartha, only for understanding, only for comparison. None of these definitions are to be taken verbatim. They are simply different ways of defining a matra. So चाषस्तु वदते मात्रां द्विमात्रां त्वेव वायसः शिखीरौति त्रिमात्रं तु नकुलस्त्वर्धमात्रिकम् is one description. वामजानूनि तद्धस्तभ्रमणं यावतां भवेत् कालेन मात्रा साज्ञेया मुनिभिर्वेदपारगैः is some other definition or some other description. निमेषो मात्रा कालः स्यात् विद्युत् कालः तथा परे is yet another explanation or definition. Now these are very simple shlokas, so if anybody wants to attempt explaining the meanings of this in English or in Sanskrit, partially is also okay. Raise your hand. Let's start with the first one. If you don't know one or the other two words, I'll help you out. But if anybody wants to attempt explaining these meanings, I'll welcome them to help out. So, chashastu vadate matram, dvimatram tveva vayasaha, shikhirauti trimatram tu, nakulastvardhamatrikam. Anybody? हाँ, पूर्णिमा भगिनी.
नमस्ते महोदय. चाषः यथा वदति तत् मात्रा कालः, द्विमात्रा वायसः काकः यावत् समयं गृह्णाति तत् द्विमात्रा कालः इति. हैंड रेज. शिखी इत्युक्ते मयूरः एतत् समय रौति क्राइस्, तत् त्रिमात्रा कालः. नकुलः यावत् तत् अर्धमात्रिकम् इति.
उत्तमम् उत्तमम्. So basically, this particular shloka tries to define the concept of matra by looking at the sounds of animals and birds in nature. So basically, chasha, the chataka pakshi, a single sound of this chataka pakshi is usually one matra. So whatever time it takes for that is considered to be one matra. Obviously, as I mentioned, everything is approximate. The double of that, dvimatra, is the cow, the vayasa, crow. Shikhi, the mayura. Rauti is to shout, to make a loud noise, not necessarily to cry. So that's trimatra, three times that of the chataka. And nakula, mongoose, the sound is very small, so that's ardhamatrikam. That's the mutual comparison based on the nature or the sounds heard in the nature given in Paniniya Shiksha. The second one, people can raise their hand. Vamajanuni tadhasta brahmanam yavata bhavet kalena matra sadhneya munibhir veda paragaihi. Uma Devi. Uma Devi, vadatu.
Mahodaya. Mahodaya, pratamam vakyam, I raised my voice. The second vakyam.
No worries. No, astu. Anybody else? Come on, you should be able to decipher some kind of meaning. If you're stuck, I will help. Vidya Narayan.
तत्र वामजानुनि पर्यन्तं हस्तभ्रमणं यावत् भवति तद् एकमात्रा इति कालसमयं तत्र तस्य एव न तु मीटर् इत्यादि मात्रा इति तत्र कालसमयः इति एव तस्य मात्रा एव एकमात्रा यावत्.
Satyam. I'll explain it in a little bit more details. So basically, Vama Januni, left knee. Janu is knee, Vama is left. Hasta Brahmanam. So basically, you keep a round of hand on your left knee. Brahmanam. A round is to be done with your finger on the left knee. Whatever time it takes, that is called one matra. So yena kalena tadrisham brahmanam bhavati saha kalaha eka matra iti Veda paragaihi munibhihi. The scholars of the Vedas understand this kind of definition. Now, as you can clearly see, it is approximate. You can traverse your hand with whatever speed you want. But then again, these are to be taken as approximate definitions of the word matra. The third one is actually very simple. Nimeshaha matra kalasyad vidyut kalaha tatha pare. Anybody? It's actually very simple. As the course proceeds,
Mahodaya.
Wait. You have to raise your hands, please. I'll let you know, but you can raise your hand. And as the course proceeds, I'll start picking the names because I don't want people to keep quiet in the class. Who was that? Geeta Bhagini, you want to answer this?
Mahodaya. Raising hand is a problem in my iPad. That is why I just directly.
Vadatu.
The speed of the lightning is nimisha, that is matra kala.
So not the speed of the lightning, but vidyut kalaha, the time for which the lightning flashes in the sky, that much time is considered as one matra by some people. So pare means some people believe that the time of the lightning flash is one matra. Some other believe that one nimesha is the time required for blink of an eye. So the time required for blink of an eye is a matra according to some people. According to some other people, vidyut kalaha, the time required for lightning is a matra. So basically multiple definitions are given, but always remember these are approximate definitions. What is the precise definition of a matra? First, fix a vritti. And in that vritti, iti swarasya uchcharanartham yaha kalaha avashyakaha. It's not necessarily you can say e also, u also. In fact, Paniniya Vyakaranam uses the word u, the swara u. But for simplicity, I used the swara over here. So you first fix a vritti. In that vritti, iti swarasya uchcharanartham yaha kalaha avashyakaha vartate. सः कालः मात्रा इति नाम्ना ज्ञायते. And once this definition of matra is understood, based on that matra, the swaras are classified into three groups. Matram anusrutya swaranam uchcharanasya trayah bhedaah santi. Very well known words. Ekamatro bhaved hrasvaha, dvimatro dirgha uchyate, trimatrastu pluto jneyah, vyanjanam tu ardhamatrikam. The Hrasva Swara should be pronounced with the time equivalent to one matra. Or reverse, the Swara that gets pronounced with the time equivalent to one matra is called Hrasva. The one that requires the time equivalent of two matras is called Dirgha. And the one that requires the time equivalent to three matras is called Pluta. So the same thing is explained in Paniniya Shiksha. Hrasvo dirghaha plutah iti kalatah niyamaha achi. So uchcharana kalam anusrutya swaranam hrasvaha dirghaha तथा च प्लुतः इति त्रयः भेदाः कृताः सन्ति. Now yesterday we saw the Varnamala. We also mentioned the Varnas Hrasva Dirgha Pluta in the shloka of Paniniya Shiksha. So all of you know this, but let me just quickly repeat. Hrasva Swarasya Udaharanani Kani. So you have A, one matra, E, one matra, U, Ru, and Lu. All of this one matra. Dirgha Swara is two matras, so double the time required for one matra. So A, E, U, R, A, I, O, and Au. These are the Dirgha Swaras. You can see there is no Dirgha of Lu. I'm going to discuss about that in a minute. Similarly, you can see A, I, O, Au. There is no Hrasva for that. I'll discuss again that also in a minute. And Pluta is three matras. So three times. So So three times A, E, U, R, L, A, I, O, and Au. So you have to elongate it till it becomes three times the original swara, Hrasva Swara. So this is Pluta Swara. Now, Pluta Swara, there is no separate notation. As you can see, for Hrasva and Dirgha, we have different letters actually. For Pluta Swara, you just take the Hrasva Swara and write the 3 number in front of it, and that becomes the Pluta Swara. An important point about the Pluta Swara is that this first Swara, even if you write it as A3, it is not to be pronounced as A. You will usually pronounce it as A. A and A are the only swaras where Hrasva and Dirgha do not naturally come by elongation. Otherwise, for everything else, so E, you will elongate, it will automatically become E. Same for U, Ru, and so on. But for A and A, the elongation doesn't come naturally. We'll see the reason in one of the upcoming classes. For now, just understand that A is Hrasva, A is Dirgha, and A3, which is to be pronounced as A, is Pluta. This is about the swaras. So Hrasva Swaraha, Dirgha Swaraha, and Pluta Swaraha. Krishna Kumar Mahoday, you have a question? Okay, no question. So this is about the 3 swaras. And then what about Vyanjanas and Ayogavahas?
Hello, namaste. Sorry.
No worries.
Kshamyatam. Sorry, Mahodaya. See, I, in the Dirgha it is there. So, Dvimatra. When it comes to Pluta, it should become 4, no?
Why 4?
Double. I mean,
the definition of Pluta
minimum
is
2.
Listen carefully. Definition of Pluta is Tisraha Matraha. So whatever time it requires for pronouncing I. So for example, if you take 2 seconds for pronouncing I, then you extend it so that it becomes 3 seconds. I. And then that becomes Pluta. There is no multiplication or doubling happening. It's 1-2-3 ratio. Okay? Okay. So that was about Swaras, Hrasva, Dirgha, and Pluta. And then What about Vyanjanas and what about Ayogavahas? So Vyanjananam Ayogavahanam cha Uchcharanakalah Ardham Matrayaha, half of the Matra. So Ardham Matrayaha, you have to write it like this. Ardham Matrayaha. You can see, because I've written Eka Matra, Dve Matre, Tisraha Matraha. You cannot write Ardha Matra. There is no Ardha Matra. You have to write it as Ardham Matrayaha. Or you can do the Samasa, Ardhamatra. But if you want to write it separate, this is Ardham Matrayaha. This is called Prathama Tatpurusha Samasa. Some point in time in the course, we will learn about this properly with details. But for now, remember the wording. Eka Matra, Dve Matre, Tisraha Matraha, and Ardham Matrayaha. So every Vyanjana is half a Matra. All Ayogavahas are generally considered half a Matra. However, Anuswara specifically is considered as Dvimatrika, sometimes Ekamatrika in the Pratishakyas. So Pratishakhyeshu Anuswaraha Bahutra Dvimatrikaha asti, Kutrachit Ekamatrikaha api asti. So in the Yajnavalkya Shiksha, there is a rule about this. वर्णे तु मात्रिके पूर्वे ह्यनुस्वारो द्विमात्रिकः द्विमात्रिके मात्रिकः स्यात् संयोगाद्यश्च यो भवेत्. So we don't need to go in the details of the shloka. What it basically means is very interesting. It says that if an anuswara is associated with a hraswa swara, say or im or then it becomes dvimatrika. And if the anuswara is associated with a dirgha swara, say am or im or then it becomes ekamatrika. So there is some complex mathematics involved, specifically in the Pratishakya. As far as Paninian Vyakarana is concerned, as far as Ashtadhyayi is concerned, all the Ayogavahas, including the Anuswara, will be considered only half a matra. So that's the basic story about the Hraswa, Dirgha and Pluta. And Hraswa and Dirgha are actually very well known. We also saw them in the Matruka Patha in the previous class. Pluta is not that commonly known. So let's spend some time on actually unraveling this mystery or understanding this secret of the Pluta Swara. So to start with, Bhashayam Pluta Swaraha Kevalam Vishishteshu eva sthaleshu prayujyate. You do not see Pluta Swara everywhere. That is obviously the reason why there is so taboo or so unknown space around it. So tatra sarva prathamam sambodhanasya krute yad vakyam uchcharyate. When you use a sentence to call somebody, tasmin vakye he iti yaha shabdaha bhavati. Tasmin shabde vidyamanaha swaraha pluta samyakaha asti. So when you are calling Devadatta, where are you? So kutra asi he Devadatta. So that he in this sentence is the a of that he is Pluta Samyaka. And if there is no he in the sentence, because he is obviously optional, you can also say Kutra Asi Devadatta or Kutra Asi Tvam Devadatta. Yadi Vakye he iti shabdaha na vidyate, tarhi Vakyasya antima swaraha Plutaha bhavati. So Kutra Asi Tvam Devadatta anena prakarena tatra uchcharanam kriyate. So this is one of the unique places or most common places, I would say, where the Pluta Swara is seen. Yet another place where Pluta Swara is seen is in a greeting scenario. You go to a teacher, specifically in front of an Acharya, and you say, Abhivadaye Acharya Devadattoham. Greetings, O teacher, I am Devadatta. When you speak this sentence, the blessing that the teacher gives you back, the last letter of that blessing becomes Pluta. So when you say Abhivadaye Acharya Devadattoham, the Acharya will, for example, reply Ayushman Bhava Devadatta, and that Devadatta is Pluta. So these are some very rare scenarios where a Pluta Swara gets used in the language. Otherwise, you do not see much use of Pluta Swara in the language. More interestingly, Pluta Swaranam Swara Sandhihi na bhavati. So we have studied so much of sandhis, hopefully all of us, but we only did the sandhis of rasvas and dirghas and never of plutas, because plutaswaranam swara sandhi na sambhavati. If you have He Agnidatta and that He is Pluta, remember the previous rule that I taught. So that He Ekara is Pluta, that Ekara will not undergo the Ayadesha even when there is A in front of it. So Atra Ekarasya Ayadeshaha na bhavati. So this is basically the story around Pluta. As we enter the sutras and the course, we are going to learn sutras specific to these rules that I've mentioned over here. So you will get a little bit of better knowledge of Plutaswara. But to start with, it's sufficient to understand these 2-3 corner cases where Plutaswara is used, and also to understand that Plutaswaranam Swara Sandhi na Sambhavati. Now that we have these 3 classes ready, Rasva, Dirgha and Pluta, also called Ekamatrika, Dvimatrika and Trimatrika, let's enumerate all possible swaras. So Akaraha, Tatra Trayaha Bhedaha Santi, A. Ikarasya Trayaha Bhedaha, Ukarasya Rikarasya Trayaha Bhedaha. For the Lukara, there is no Dirgha Bheda. There is only Rasva Bheda and Pluta Bheda. What do we mean by there is no Dirgha Bheda? Technically, Lukarasya Dirgha Sambhavati. I mean, if you can pronounce Lu with 1 matra and 3 matras, who stops you from pronouncing it with 2 matras? Parantu Samskrute Bhashayam Dirgha Lukarasya Prayogaha na drishyate. So remember in the Matruka Patha, and if you don't remember, go back and see yesterday's presentation. In the Matruka Patha, we actually collected Rasva and Dirgha Lukara because the relation or the place from where the Matruka Patha has come, the Devi Aradhana and Matruka Bijani and so on, there is some significance for the Dirgha Lukara. So Dirgha Lukara is used in the Tantra Shastra or in Matruka Patha in general. Samskrita Bhashayam Laukika Samskrite tasya prayogaha navartate ataha Dirgha Lukarasya atra parigananam krutam nasti. So understand the word that we are using, parigananam. We are not counting it. We are not denying its existence, but as far as grammar is concerned, shiksha is concerned, we are not going to count it. Anenaiva prakarena, for example, in Kannada or in other languages, there is a rasva version of A or O, parantu samskrute tesham prayogaha na drishyate, ataha etesham parigananam api atra na bhavati. Now there is one point at this particular place which I want to explain. Actually, it's related to the question that was asked earlier. And it is that A, I, O, these 4 swaras are usually called as the Sanyukta swaras, I think that's the name they use. It's not a standard name, but people typically use it because A becomes A plus E and I becomes A plus A and so on. But that kind of division is okay as far as sandhis are concerned, but that division has nothing to do with matras. So just because A plus E is equal to A, you cannot count 1 matra of A and 1 matra of E, that becomes 2 matra and therefore A is dvimatrika and dirgha. That's not how the equation runs. Why? Because otherwise A plus E, that is also A. And now A is 2 matras and E is 2 matras, and then 2 plus 2, it will be 4 matras. So then A will start ending up in 4 matras. So that's not how the mathematics happens. Matras are not created based on the rules of Sandhi. So A plus E is equal to A is purely a rule of Sandhi. It's nothing to do with the matras or the time for pronunciation. Ekara, Aikara, Okara, Aukara. Etesham kevalam dirgha bhedaha asti, pluta bheda asti. You have to speak A with a time twice that of A, and you have to speak A with a time thrice that of A. That's all. And all this, let me remind you again, all this is based on that concept of vritti. So here is a simple mathematical chart. You do not need to remember it, but I'm just trying to show you over here that if the vritti changes, all the equations are going to change. So for example, if you take druta vritti, super fast talking, And if the Hrasva Swara Uchcharana Kala is considered X, which is 1 matra, Hrasva Swara 1 matra, Dirgha will be 2 matras, Pluta will be 3 matras, so that's X, 2X, 3X. Vyanjana will be half a matra, that's 0.5X. And everything gets shifted if the Vritti itself changes. So if you take, for example, Vilambita Vritti, the same which required X amount of time in the Dhrutavritti is now going to take 1.78X amount of time, and it will still be called Hrasva. So understand this, 2X in the Dhrutavritti will be Dirgha, but 1.78X in the Vilambita Vritti will be Hrasva, and so on. So all these calculations, you don't need to remember this. If you are very mathematics savvy, you can do further additional computations on this. But this table was kept over here to precisely show you that never ever forget the fact that matra is not an absolute unit of measurement. It has to be based on the vritti that you pick. Agre gacchamaha. So these three important Vedas, Hrasva, Dirgha and Pluta, एतेषाम् आधारेण व्याकरणशास्त्रे विशेषरूपेण अष्टाध्याय्यां बहवः नियमाः कृताः वर्तन्ते. So these Hrasva, Dirgha, Pluta, they are not just divisions of letters. There is no point in dividing the letters into the groups if there is no value. So we have rules in Ashtadhyayi that specifically talk about or deal with a Hrasva Swara or a Dirgha Swara or a Pluta Swara. I'm just going to give you some examples so that you can relate whatever you have already studied to these concepts of Hrasva, Dirgha and Pluta. We will learn these rules again later in the course with help of proper sutras and commentaries. But for now, let us quickly recollect the rules that we have already studied as a general grammar study and see how they relate with Hrasva, Dirgha and Pluta. So Hrasva Swaranta Dhatuhu Yada Asti Tasmat Lyap iti Pratyah Vidhiyate Chet Dhatoho Anantaram Takarasya Shravanam Bhavati. So if you say Upa plus Kru plus Lyapa, the final form is Upakritya. There is that additional ta coming in the picture, Upakritya, and this ta is inserted purely because Kru has a Hrasva Swara. So there is a rule in Ashtadhyayi which says, look at the last swara of the dhatu. If it is a Hrasva Swara, insert a ta. If it is a Dirgha Swara, for example, Upaniya will simply becomes Upaniya. You don't insert a ta. In fact, this rule can be used in some unexpected situations. So for example, you say Upa plus Gama plus Lyapa. Now, Gama has a makara at the end. It's not a Hrasva Swara. But there is yet another sutra in Ashtadhyayi which will get rid of that makara. And once makara is removed, what remains is Upa, Ga and Lyapa. And now there is a Hrasva Swara. So now you apply this rule and add a ta to get Upagatya or say Avagatya and so on. So this rule is specific to Hrasva Swara. Another example. दीर्घ इकारांत स्त्रीलिंग शब्दः अस्ति नो चेत् दीर्घ उकारांत स्त्रीलिंग शब्दः अस्ति चेत् संबोधनस्य एकवचने तस्य ह्रस्वः भवति. So nadi becomes he nadi, vadhu becomes he vadhu. Again, there is a specific rule associated with dirgha letters getting converted to hraswa letters. Shashti bahuvachanasya pratyaya pare angasya dirghaha bhavati. Very well known. So Rama becomes Ramanam, Muninam, Pitrinam. So again, a rule very specific to Dirgha. The Savarna Dirgha Sandhi that you all are aware itself has the word Dirgha in it. So iti plus idam becomes itidam, nadiyam. So again, rules specific to Hrasva and Dirgha. And for Pluta, as I mentioned, there is only one rule, Pluta Swaranam Hrasva Sandhi na sambhavati. So this way, Vyakarana Shastra deals with these words Hrasva, Dirgha and Pluta and employs them in various rules. Now in the context of this Hrasva, Dirgha and Pluta, there are two more samnyas which are also common in the prosody, the Chandas Shastra, but we will also use them in the Vyakarana Shastra, and these are Laghu and Guru. So swaras, the vowels, are classified as Prashna asti va? So vowels, the swaras, are classified either as Laghu or as Guru based on certain criteria. Vyakarana Shastre Swaranam Laghuswaraha Nochit Guruswaraha iti vibhajanam kriyate. Understand now the definitions of this. Saharhasva swaraha Yasmat anantaram sanyogaha nasti. Remember, we have studied sanyoga in the previous class. So, saharhasva swaraha Yasmat anantaram sanyogaha nasti laghuswaraha namna jnayate. So, if you take the word muni, mu, this is the rasva ukara and it doesn't have a sanyoga after it. Similarly, ni, there is a rasva ikara and it doesn't have a sanyoga after it. So both of these, that is the ukara and the ikara, are called laghu swaras. So any rasva swar which does not have a sanyoga after it is called laghu swara, and contrary, any rasva swara which has a sanyoga after it is called a guru swara. So Krishna ityatra rukarat anantaram kim asti? Sh plus na plus a. So you have a sanyoga called sh plus na there. So Krishna iti pratipadike kakarottaraha rikaraha guru swaraha. So the rasva swaras are further classified into two groups. There is laghu rasva swaras and there is guru rasva swaras. You don't call them laghu rasva and guru rasva. You just call them laghu and guru. But laghu swara is a rasva swara which does not have a sanyoga after it. A guru swara is the rasva swara which has a sanyoga after it. And a dirgha swara is always a guru swara. So when you see a dirgha swara, you don't need to worry about whether there is a sanyoga or not. It is always a guru swara. So Rama iti pratipadike rephottaraha akaraha guru swaraha asti. Now there is no sanyoga after it, but that's irrelevant. Pautra iti pratipadike pakarottaraha aukaraha. It is a dirgha swara, so it automatically becomes guru swara. Now there is a sanyoga after it, but again it is irrelevant. So Rasva Swara, look at the Sanyoga and then decide Laghu versus Guru. Dirgha Swara, it is always Guru. Anena prakarena Laghu tatha Guru iti samyayoho Vyakarana Shastre Vyakhyakrita asti. Using Laghu and Guru. Now we don't have time, but otherwise I would have spent a little more time. But just like Rasva and Dirgha, Laghu and Guru are also terms used in Ashtadhyayi for specific rules associated with Prakriti Pratyaya Vibhaga. Anjali Bhagini.
Krishna tatra shana tari laghu asti va guru
It's written over here, right? It's written, right? Krishna iti pratipadiki kim asti? Kakarottaha rukaraha asti. So you want to decide whether rukara is guru or laghu. So you look what is after it.
हाँ तरी क्रू गुरु अस्ति परंतु shna किम अस्ति?
Wait. So this language is wrong. Don't say kru guru asti. Rukaraha guru asti. The guru and laghu are for swaras. So you say rukaraha guru asti. Akaraha, nakarottaraha akaraha tu laghu asti. Because it is a rasva swara and it does not have any sanyoga after it.
परंतु संयुक्त अस्ति तदापि लघु एव.
If there is a visarga, if there is an anuswara, all these are considered part of sanyoga only. So if there is a visarga, if there is anuswara, or if there is, for example, Krishna sya, then sya, that sanyoga is coming over there, then it will become guru. So I've just given one example over here for you to understand what is a laghu versus what is a guru. Clear? Krishna Kumar Mahoday.
Mahoday, two questions. Question number one is, for example, if you take pach, akara laghu, but chakara is coming at the end. So what do you do with that?
So basically you still treat pach, cha as laghu for now with this definition. There are minor quirks which will appear when it comes to some specific sutras. I don't want to, confuse you all over here. But for now, because it is pacha, there is no sanyoga, because pacha will be used as pachati, for example, then it becomes laghu. But if after that cha ya comes, it will become guru. Okay.
What about visarga?
Visarga will be considered as a part of, the contributor for guru. Visarga, anuswara, all are considered contributors of guru. Okay.
Astu Mahoday, धन्यवाद.
Uma Devi.
महोदय, उपाक्रु एकवारं वदतु महोदय. Previous slide, upakru.
No,
upakru
here all
lep.
that I was saying is that if you have a raswa swara, then some ta will appear. It was an example of how a raswa swara is used in rules of grammar. You do not need to remember any of this. This will come up in the course as we progress. This was just an example of how a rule of grammar is created using raswa swara. Clear?
Yeah. Okay, Mahodaya.
ASR Murthy Mahoday. ASR Murthy Mahoday.
In Krishna, Kru is Guru. In Krupa, the Kru is Raswa.
Laghu. What you want to say is laghu. In Krupa, Kru, correct. In Krupa, Kru is laghu. In Krishna, Kru is Guru. Correct. Krishna Kumar Mahoday.
One more question, Mahoday. See, after this laghu, if it's samyoga akshara is there, then you consider as Guru. But
not after laghu, after raswa. After raswa.
But why it is after it? It is preceding. If it is before, is there any technical reason for that?
This is how the terms have been defined. Why the terms have been defined like this? Because this kind of observation will help us define certain rules in grammar. If there is a sanyoga before it, and if that particular configuration is useful in grammar, we will give a name for it. But if there is no such configuration that's useful for, and this is actually a very important question, that why define all this and why define it in this particular way? The answer is because it has some application later on in the Sutra Patha, which we will learn after a few classes.
Excuse me for this nonsensical questions.
Ratnakar Mahoday. Just one note, Mahoday. I welcome all the questions, but the syllabus has to be completed. So more are the questions, the class is going to extend. I'm okay with that. I'm just setting the expectations right.
I understand. Sorry that I disturbed.
No, that's okay. You can ask the question.
And Acharya, in O, some people write O as Pluta, and some people write it as Dirgha. So what is that now? What exactly is Om?
Correct. So it is not some people write Pluta versus Dirgha. It's the style of pronunciation. Om is basically two letters. There is O and there is a Ma. Whether you write it in a typical symbol and so on is different. Vyakarana Drishtya, it's O and Ma. And now if you want to speak that O in an elongated manner like Om, then you will write it as a Pluta. So it depends on how you want to pronounce. That's how you will write. It's as simple as that. There is no fixed rule on whether it is Pluta or whether it is Dirgha.
But in fact, what is the exact pronunciation? Like Om or Om?
Because it is O, I told you, right? It is O and Ma. It is O and Ma. And how you elongate it, that depends on how you extend it.
Okay. Thanks so much.
Reshma Kale.
नमस्ते महोदय. अत्र पौत्रमध्ये यत् औकारः अस्ति सः गुरुस्वरः अस्ति, तर्हि आदौ औकार दीर्घ अस्ति तथा च त्र इति संयुक्तवर्ण अपि अस्ति, तर्हि द्वयोः कारणात् सः गुरु अस्ति.
दीर्घस्वरः नित्यं गुरुस्वरः, दीर्घस्वरस्य दृष्ट्या दीर्घस्वरस्य विषये संयोगस्य चिन्तनं न करणीयम्. That's specifically why I just wrote Dirghaswaraha Nityam Guruswaraha. For Hrasvaswaraha, the Sanyoga discussion is required. So I explicitly said Yasmat Anantaram Sanyogaha Nasti and Yasmat Anantaram Sanyogaha Vidyate. As far as Guruswara is concerned, I have given one example without Sanyoga, one example with Sanyoga, just to demonstrate that Sanyoga is out of picture. Okay?
Okay. Astu.
ASR Murthy Mahodaya. Please put down your hands once you're done with questions so that I know if there are more people who want to talk. ASR Murthy Mahodaya. Astu. So what I was talking, Laghu and Guru iti samthyayoho prayogam krutva vyakarane bhinnaha niyamaha uktaha santi. Now, there is something else that I want to discuss. We still have, this is slide number 16, and I think we have around 20 slides. So we have still 4 more slides. Now, in the Vyakhyanas, I mean, as we go ahead in the course, we are going to start looking at Vyakhyanas of various sutras. So, in these Vyakhyanas, Swarasya Nirdeshartham Kutrachit Varna iti Shabdasya Prayogaha Kritaha Drishyate. Specifically for Swara, I am talking. Varna iti Shabdaha Prayuktaha Drishyate. Kutrachit Kara iti Pratyayaha, which we have already seen. Akara, Kakara, and all that. So, Kara iti Pratyayaha api Prayuktaha Drishyate. So, Ashtadhyayaha Vyakhyaneshu Bahutra Swaranam Nirdeshaha Kutrachit Varna iti Shabdena Bhavati. Avarnaha, Uvarnaha, A varnaha, and so on. Tatha kar iti pratyena kutrachit bhavati. Akaraha, ikaraha, ekaraha, and so on. This is not a random usage. People don't write Vyakhyanas randomly. There is a convention behind this. And I am purposely using the word convention because there is no such rule in grammar that varna has to be used for this thing and kara has to be used for that thing. But the generally accepted unwritten convention is as follows. When you use the word varna, you want to include all the Bhedas like Hrasva, Dirgha, and Pluta. Pluta can be kept aside because, as I mentioned, it's very rare, but mainly Hrasva and Dirgha. So, Varna iti shabdena yada nirdeshaha bhavati tada kalakrutanam bhedanam grahanam ishyate. So, for example, when you say a varnaha, it's a and a. Of course, Pluta, but we keep that aside for the rest of the discussion. Evameva e varnaha is e and e. And therefore, you will see sentences like avarnasya e varnasya gudasandhihi bhavati. They won't say akarasya ikarasya. They will say avarnasya e varnasya gunasandhi bhavati. What it means is that a or a combined with e or e undergoes a gunasandhi. So this is a short form for writing a varna and e varna. Varna will include the Hrasva as well as Dirgha Bheda. And therefore, people will never say avarna. Avarna is very unnatural. There is nothing wrong in it, but it's very unnatural. You would rather pick up the first member of that list and say avarna, which will mean a, and pluta as well. On the other hand, kara iti pratyayena yada nirdeshaha kriyate tada kalakruta bhedasya grahanam na bhavati. So when you say akaraha, it is only Hrasva. When you say akaraha, it is only dirgha. And all of you are familiar with this terminology because you say Rama iti akaranta pratipadikam. You don't say avarnanta pratipadikam. You say akaranta pratipadikam. Sita iti akaranta pratipadikam. So specifically when it comes to the swaras, the word varna in the commentaries is reserved for all the Hrasva Dirgha Bhedas. And the word kara, the pratyaya kara, is only limited to that particular matra. A kara will be Hrasva and a kara will be Dirgha. For Vyanjanas, this question doesn't come because there is no Hrasva Dirgha Vyanjanas. So whether you say ka varna or whether you say ka kara, it's one and the same. And remember that this distinction is not officially recorded as a rule in Ashtadhyayi. So sometimes there may be mistakes in the commentaries, or some commentator may decide to not follow the convention. That's okay. But this is a general convention that you will see as you will start learning the commentaries. Let's move ahead. We'll probably need 15 more minutes, but let's move ahead. The next concept that I want to talk going ahead is about this matra point. So Hrasva, Dirgha and Pluta are all now done. But the fundamental aspect behind this Hrasva, Dirgha and Pluta is the concept of matra. So based on that matra, there are some more terms that are used in grammar, and I want to discuss that. So yada ekasya varnasya uchcharanat anantaram अर्धमात्रायाः अपेक्षया अधिकस्य कालस्य विरामं स्वीकृत्य ततः अन्यवर्णस्य उच्चारणं क्रियते तदा द्वयोः वर्णयोः मध्ये अवसानम् अस्ति इति उच्यते. This is the term avasana that we are learning. When you pronounce a word, a letter, and then you wait for at least one matra. So ardhamatrayaha apekshaya adhikasya kalasya viramam, a pause, a break. When you pronounce a varna and take a break of one matra and then pronounce another varna, the break can be even larger. So ardhamatrayaha apekshaya adhikasya can be 1, 2, 5, 10, whatever matras. But if there is that break of minimum one matra, then we say that there is an avasana. And typically such an avasana is seen when you are speaking a sentence and you end one word and start another word, or end one sentence and start another sentence. So vakyasya dvayoho padayoho madhye avasanam drishyate. Asti eva iti na vadami, drishyate. So there is this particular vakya from Smriti. Padayoho antare kale ekamatra vidhiyate. Between the two padas, padayoho antare kale, between the two padas, ekamatra gap is to be taken. So here is an example. Nadi atra asti, nadyam phalam patati. I have purposely marked it with that yellow color. Whatever you see with that yellow color is a pause of one matra, and that is avasana. The technical term is avasana. There is a sutra in Ashtadhyayi called Viramaha Avasanam. Basically, it says Virama means a pause. The non-speaking is called avasana. And this avasana is only between the words. You cannot have an avasana between letters of the same word. So for example, you cannot say no and then take a pause and say di. That's not acceptable. Ekasya varnasya padanam madhye avasanam na sambhavati. Padasya sarve api varnaha vina viramam eva uchcharaniyaha. And the concept that is exactly opposite of avasana is samhita. So samhita means you continuously pronounce the letters without a gap of one matra. Half a matra gap is fine because that is what it naturally takes for a human being to breathe, or even that entire process of vayu coming up, hitting the kantha and so on, coming out. That whole process takes half a matra in general. So half a matra gap is fine. It is considered as no gap at all. So yadi ekasya varnasya uchcharanat anantaram viramam vina. So you just don't take any gap. Or swabhava siddham ardhamatra kalam yavat viramam svikrutya. Swabhava siddham means the one that occurs naturally. It's a part of biological process. So swabhava siddham ardhamatra kalam yavat viramam svikrutya tadanantaram aparasya varnasya uchcharanam kriyate chet dvayoho varnayoho madhye samhita asti iti uchyate. So it is exactly opposite of virama or avasana. Samhita tatha avasana iti shabdau viruddharthakau. If you speak continuously, it will be called samhita. If you take a pause of one matra, it will be called avasana. So yatra samhita asti tatra avasanam nasti, yatra avasanam asti tatra samhita nasti. And as far as this samhita is concerned, there is a rule regarding where this samhita is compulsory. So obviously, when you're speaking one word, say Sanskritam, you must have a samhita between sa and sa and ka and ru and so on. Understand, the samhita is between individual letters. So individual swaras, vyanjanas, everything, there will be a samhita in each pair. So samhita is obviously compulsory when you're speaking one word. You cannot just say some, have a sip of coffee and then say screw and so on. So एकपदे तु अवश्यं संहिता वर्तते, परन्तु तस्माद् तद् विहाय केषुचित् भिन्नेषु स्थलेषु अपि संहिता नित्या इत्युक्ते कंपल्सरी अस्ति. So there is this karika over here. Everybody has to memorize this karika. It's there in the homework today. संहितैकपदे नित्या, नित्या धातूपसर्गयोः, नित्या समासे वाक्ये तु सा विवक्षाम अपेक्षते. In ekapada, single word, samhita is compulsory. So Ramaha, this is a single pada. You cannot take a pause between ra and a, or a and ma, or ma and or and visarga. You cannot take pause anywhere. You have to say Ramaha. So ekasmin pade avasanam na sambhavati, samhita nitya asti. The second place where samhita is compulsory is dhatu and upasarga. Technically speaking, dhatu and upasarga are different padas. We will learn about that in the due course. So if you say agachati, there are actually two padas. A is a separate pada, gachati is a separate pada. But still, you cannot say a, then pause, then gachati. That's not allowed. You must say agachati. उपसर्ग तथा धातु एतयोः मध्ये संहिता नित्या वर्तते. प्रणमति उपसर्गः तथा धातुः एतयोः मध्ये संहिता नित्या अस्ति. So that's संहिता एकपदे नित्या, नित्या धातु उपसर्गयोः, नित्या समासे. When you do the samasa, Sitayaha patihi, samasa becomes a Sitapati. Now again here, Sita is a separate pada, Pati is a separate pada, but still you cannot say Sita, take a pause and say Pati. Sita Patihi has to be spoken continuously. Rama Lakshmana, there is Rama and Lakshmana, different padas, still has to be spoken continuously. So samase, purva padam tatha uttara padam, etayoho madhye samhita nitya vartate. So kutra kutra nitya means compulsory. Kutra kutra nitya vartate? Samhita ekapade nitya, dhatu upasargayoho madhye nitya, samase nitya, vakye tu sa vivaksham apekshate. Vivaksha means intention of speaker. When a general vakya is being spoken, it is up to the speaker to decide whether to take a pause, take a sip of coffee and speak, or just speak continuously. So nadi vahati ityatra nadi vahati ityapi vaktum shaknumaha, nadi vahati ityapi vaktum shaknumaha. In a sentence where there is no single pada, where there is no dhatu upasarga combination, where there is no samasa, in those two words samhita is optional. You can either speak continuously, which means you can include samhita, or you can speak with a break, which means you can include avasana. Now there are a few raised hands, but let me complete next two slides, 19 and 20 and 21, I think 3, and then I'll take questions. Now the reason why I'm telling all these things is because this is related, closely related to the concept of matra. The pause of one matra is called avasana, and anything less than that is called samhita. And this brings us actually to a very, very important point in Sanskrit grammar. A lot of people think that sandhis are compulsory. Some other people think that sandhis are optional. Both of these are wrong assumptions. The correct assumption or the correct rule in Sanskrit grammar is that sandhikaryam tada eva bhavati yada samhita asti, संहितायाः अभावे संधिकार्यं न संभवति. So before you actually do the sandhi, the question to ask is not whether sandhi is compulsory or not. The question to ask is samhita compulsory or not? And if it is not compulsory, do you have a vivaksha? Do you have an intention of doing samhita? If the samhita is compulsory, sandhi will happen. If the samhita is not there, sandhi will not happen. Let's take examples. So samase samhita nitya asti. So samase sandhi karyam api nityam. So when you do the samas of Surya and Udaya, you cannot say Surya Udaya. You have to say Surya Udaya because the sandhi is compulsory. Why the sandhi is compulsory? Because samhita is compulsory. So samhita dictates sandhi. Pitam ambaram yasya saha. You cannot say pita ambaraha. You must say pita ambaraha. So similarly, upasarga and dhatu, the samhita is compulsory, so sandhi karya is compulsory. Pra plus ikshate, you cannot say pra ikshate, you have to say prekshate. Anu plus agachat, you cannot say anu agachat, you have to say anvagachat. So samhita is compulsory, therefore sandhi is compulsory. There are some special cases where samhita is considered compulsory and therefore sandhi is also considered compulsory. Very special corner cases. So words like kaschana, kasminschit, kebhyashchana, this is not a samasa. This is not upasarga dhatu. The chitta and chana are not pratyayas. I know everybody of you believes that they are pratyayas. Okay for an introductory grammar course, but when you come to Paninian grammar, chitta and chana are not pratyayas, they are avyayas. So kaha is one avyaya, chitta is another avyaya, but you cannot say kaha chitta. You have to say kaschita or kaschana or kasminschita, kebhyashchana. So in these specific cases, samhita is compulsory, therefore sandhi is compulsory. Parasparam, Anyonyaha, Ekaikaha. These have to be written with the sandhis because the samhita is compulsory. So in these cases, samhita is compulsory and therefore sandhi automatically happens. But when it comes to vakyam, tatra samhita vivaksham anusarati. So you have a choice whether to do samhita or not. Both the pakshas are correct. You choose whichever you want. If you choose to do the samhita, sandhi is compulsory. If you do not choose to do samhita, you have no choice of doing sandhi. Sandhihi na bhavati. So everything that is written on the slide over here is correct. Ramaha gacchati. See how I am speaking. I am taking a minor pause. I am not saying Ramaha gacchati. Ramaha gacchati. A minor pause is being taken. Samhita is not there. Sandhi doesn't happen. This is a valid statement. On the other hand, if you decide to have samhita, sandhi is compulsory. So you cannot say Ramaha gacchati. You must do the sandhi and say Ramo gacchati. You can also not say Ramo, then take a gap and gacchati, because then Samhita will be cancelled. Samhita is cancelled means no sandhi. So you must say Ramaha gacchati. So understand this. If you choose a samhita, sandhi must happen. If you choose a non-samhita, sandhi will not happen. So for example, this question that was given in one of the previous homeworks, except for two people, everybody did it wrong. Phalam patati. This is a valid statement. You just say there is no samhita. Phalam tatha patati etayor madhye samhita nasti. Ataha tatra sandhi na bhavati. If you decide that you want to do samhita, then you must do the sandhi, convert makara to anuswara. So phalam patati. I'm not taking a gap while speaking. Phalam patati. On the other hand, on the left side, I am speaking phalam patati. A minor pause is taken. Samhita is cancelled. Avasana comes in the picture. No sandhi. Similarly, tad pushpam. You can write a dakara over here. But when it comes to samhita, shartva will happen. Tat pushpam. You cannot say tad pushpam. Tat pushpam. Munihi rajate. Take a gap and all is good. If you don't want to take a gap, if you want to have a samhita, muni rajate. Finally, iti, api. Take a gap and you are fine. Or ityapi. You cannot just say iti api, ityapi. So once you decide to have a samhita, sandhi api tatra nityam bhavati. So there are very minor cases actually where samhitayam satyam api sandhi vikalpena bhavati. Very few corner cases which we will learn as the course proceeds. So Purva Savarna Sandhi is an example. Vak plus harihi. Even when there is samhita, you cannot do the sandhi and say vagharihi, or you can do the sandhi and say vagharihi. Both cases are possible. But these are extremely rare situations. In 99% of the cases that you have studied, so for example, Visarga Sandhis or Anuswara Sandhis or like Jashtva and so on, Yana Sandhi and so on, in all these cases, check whether there is a samhita. If the samhita is compulsory, sandhi will happen. If the samhita is optional, decide whether you want to do the samhita. If you want to do the samhita, sandhi will happen. If you don't want to do the samhita, sandhi will not happen. And one last point and then we will stop. Samhita asti chet yada sandhihi bhavati tada akshareshu api parivartanam bhavati. So we have studied the term akshara yesterday. एकः स्वरः तथा च अन्यानि व्यञ्जनानि नो चेत् अयोगवाहाः एतेषां संयोगमेलनेन अक्षरस्य निर्माणं भवति. सो सन्धिः भवति चेत् अक्षरसङ्ख्यायां परिवर्तनं सम्भवति, अक्षरेषु परिवर्तनं सम्भवति. So here are some examples. If you say aham and asmi with a pause, lack of samhita, then the first akshara is a, the second akshara is hum, because then there is a pause, you cannot go beyond that. Third akshara is a and fourth akshara is a smi. So there are 4 aksharas. But when you do the varna melanam over there, if there is no, if there is no avasana, if samhita is forced, then the varna melanam happens. Aham asmi, still 4 aksharas, but now the aksharas are changing. A, ha, ma, smi. So aksharas have changed. In some cases, the number of aksharas might reduce. So Raja, Uvacha, 5 aksharas. Ra, Ja, U, Va, and Cha. When you do a sandhi, because samhita is compulsory, you will do a sandhi, 4 aksharas, Ra, Jo, Va, Cha. And so on. You can look at other examples on the slide. The point to understand is that samhitayam satyam sandhim krutva akshareshu parivartanam sambhavati, akshara sankhayam api parivartanam sambhavati. So that's basically all about today's class. Everything that we discussed today revolve around the central theme of Kalakrutaha Varna Vibhagaha. So 5 different types of classifications is what I told at the beginning of the class. Only the first we have taken one full class of 1.5 hours today, Kalakrutaha Varna Vibhagaha. In the same way, we have a lot to study for Swarakrutaha, Sthanakrutaha, Prayatnakrutaha, and Anupradanakrutaha. One class going ahead, we will take for each of them. Here is today's homework. Let me read it. Sankshepena Uttarata. Some simple questions are there. 3, 4 line answers. Second is Bhedan Spashti Kuruta. Give the differences. So Vrittihi versus Matra. Jivha Muliyaha versus Upadmaniyaha. Sanyogaha versus Vyanjanam. Vyakranam versus Niruktam. So explain the Bhedas. Every class will have homework. All homeworks are compulsory. Most of you are already submitting, but those of you who are not submitting, the deadline is approaching. So make sure you submit on time. So that's all for today. Now I'll take questions if there are any. Otherwise, we will conclude with the Mangalacharanam. Vidyaji.
महोदय मङ्गलानन्तरम् अपि प्रष्टुं शक्नोमि महोदय?
विषयस्य सन्दर्भेण अस्ति चेत् इदानीमेव पृच्छतु.
अद्यतनपाठस्य विषयः एव तत्र मया पुस्तकेषु पठितमस्ति. तत्र लेखननियमः अस्ति, यदा व्यञ्जनमस्ति तदा तत्र मूनुस्वारस्य प्रयोगः भवति एव इति, परन्तु तत्र विकल्पेन पदद्वयम् अस्ति चेत् तत्र वाक्यं नास्ति चेत् साधु एव इत्यपि अस्ति. तत्र भवतां मते
Mama chintaram kimasti. So my thinking is very simple. In the introductory grammar books, a lot of wrong rules are taught, not with bad intentions, but with good intentions, not to confuse students. So I always give this example. When you're teaching a second standard or third standard student, you will say that 3 minus 5 is senseless. You cannot subtract 5 from 3. When you go to advanced grades, you will understand negative numbers and fractions and so on. So now you're entering Paninian grammar. So now your turn is to learn all the rules precisely and with all the exceptions. So the correct rule is what I have told. When you have an entity like say phalam patati or harim vande, it's not a samasa, it's not upasarga and dhatu, it's not one of those special cases. So samhita is optional. If there is samhita, sandhi is compulsory, put a dot. If there is no samhita, just write makara. You cannot put a dot, and whether there is a samhita or not is your choice. That's the grammar rule.
धन्यवादः
श्रीनिवास महोदय.
सामान्यः प्रश्नः महोदय. तत्र वर्णोच्चारण क्षम्यतां व्यञ्जनानाम् उच्चारणे तु अर्धमात्राकालः इति उक्तं किल. तर्हि तस्य अनन्तरं कारः इति प्रत्यययोजनेन ककारः इति उक्तं. तत्र मध्ये अकारः इति अध्याहृतम् अस्ति वा?
तत्र किमस्ति ककार इत्यत्र कार इति प्रत्ययः अस्ति. सो इन ऑर्डर टू अटैच दैट प्रत्यय तत्र अकारस्य अध्याहारः क्रियते. सो ककारः इत्युक्ते क वर्णः इति अर्थः.
तत्र अ
एव अध्याह्रियते इति आशयः. सत्यं.
कीकारः न वक्तुं शक्नुमः.
तत्र तादृशं प्रयोगे नास्ति. ककार इत्येव प्रयोगः श्रूयते.
अस्तु, धन्यवादः.
रीमालाल. Those of you who don't have questions, please put down their hands. Namaste.
Namaste. So, regarding the kaschana and the kaschita, are those samasas? What kind of words are those?
They are not samasas again. So, I know a lot of introductory books teach as these chit and chana pratyas. I myself teach them as pratyas when I'm teaching the introductory Sanskrit classes. But when it comes to Paninian grammar, kaha is basically just kim ityasya prathama ekvachanam. Chit and chana are avyayas like iti and api and so on. And when you put them together, you have to combine them. You should not say kahachana, you should say kaschana. So it is not a samasa that is happening. It is not a pratyaya. It is just one word combined with one avyaya. That's it.
So it's not a keval samasa?
No, it is not a samasa at all, because samasa happens with pratipadiks. Padas are removed. The sub-endings of padas are removed. It is a pada sitting over here, right?
Aluk?
No, it's not. Nothing like
it's
that.
Not okay. So
it is the closest thing that is accepted in Paninian grammar is chitta and chana are considered like tadhita pratyayas. So once they are considered like tadhita pratyayas, it becomes single word, and then you are forced to do the sandhi. But otherwise, that's also a convention.
But tadhitas also apply on pratipadiks, right? So here we have
so that's why
the vibhakti ending.
So we are going in
doesn't
much
follow
advanced
rules.
stuff.
Okay.
Let's not go, but closest is what I said. Closest that you can consider them are the tadhita pratyaya.
So the other thing was, sometimes when we are chanting shlokas, we are required to put, is that an avasana, what you would say, to take a breath?
That's technically called yati, which is a concept in the Chandas Shastra, but yati is similar to an avasana. By the way, you mentioned about shlokas, so there is something that I want to mention. When you are chanting shlokas, the samhita is compulsory. In simple vakyas, the samhita is optional. But while shlokas are spoken specifically, there is a rule. First quarter and the second quarter, samhita is compulsory. Prathama padaha, dvitiya padaha. Similarly, the third quarter and the fourth quarter, the samhita is compulsory. And after the second quarter, there has to be an avasana. So these are the rules associated with the poetry. I'm just mentioning it, nothing to do with Vyakarana. But that's also like, it's not a samasa necessarily, it's not upasarga dhatu, but that's also another case where samhita becomes compulsory.
Yes, dhanyavad.
Purnima Bhagini.
महोदय मम प्रश्नः अकारप्लुतस्य उच्चारणं कथं भवति इति जिज्ञासा.
अकारप्लुतस्य उच्चारणम् आ इति भवति. This is only for information because we will not need to pronounce it anywhere in the course. परन्तु तत्र उदाहरणमपि मया दर्शितमस्ति आयुष्मान् भव देवदत्ता इति प्रकारेण प्लुत अकारस्य उच्चारणं भवति. It's there in one of the slides if you
आकारवत् वा महोदय?
आकारवत्. You extend an a for yet another matra. Not a, it's a. Clear?
धन्यवाद.
It's written over here. Ayushman Bhava Devadatta is how it is pronounced. Any further questions? Please revise the material. A lot of things are being taught in every class. Soon it will be too much to accumulate. Vidya Bhagini.
क्षम्यतां महोदय, इतोपि एकः प्रश्नः. तत्र लघु गुरु इत्यादिकं अलङ्कारशास्त्रेषु नाम छन्दशास्त्रे अपि अस्ति किल, तस्य एषः एव
इयम् एव व्याख्या अस्ति वा? So understand this. 90% of the cases the Vyakhya is the same. However, Laghu and Guru have a very, very specific application in the Chanda Shastra because it defines those Chandas. Like for example, in Anushtupa, you need a fifth as Laghu and sixth as Guru and so on. So these rules are very stringent in case of Chanda Shastra. And in Chanda Shastra, there are some 8 to 10 rules where an apparent Laghu Swar might be treated as Guru, or for example, Padante Laghu becomes Guru and so on. Or so there are cases where a Guru might become Laghu and so on. So there are definitions of Laghu and Guru in Chanda Shastra which are superset of the definitions that we saw here. What we saw here is limited to Vyakarana Shastra. Having said that, the definitions in the Chanda Shastra are not contradictory. They are just building up on these basic definitions. Clear? Itopi prashnah asti chet prashtum shakyate, no chet Mangalacharanam krutva samapayamaha. We will have 2 classes as usual next week. So we will hopefully take Swaram Anusrutya and probably Sthanam Anusrutya. So samapayamaha. Ashtadhyai Jaganmata yasya chittat samuttita vedanam upakaraaya tasmai paniniye namaha. Shabda Brahma samaradhya kritavanyo vilakshanam sarvaschariyamidam shastram tasmai paniniye namaha. Yena dhauta giraf pumsam vimalai shabdavaribhihi तमश्चात् ज्ञानजं भिन्नं तस्मै पाणिनये नमः. धन्यवादः.